just a few of the many stars gathering soon for Christmas with BBC One.
Enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rising Stars.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. It's not how you go, it's how you land. 100 to 1 shot, they call him a klutz. Can outrun the favorite, all he needs is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on top.
There's The Godfather with Marlon Brando.
The rest world and the multiple artists, Hollywood big shots, I'm gonna give you what you want. Certainly, start shooting in a week. I'm gonna make them an offer again.
Nashville is a kaleidoscopic vision of the events surrounding a country and western festival.
I'm Opal. I'm from the BBC, and I'm doing a documentary on Nashville.
You know I don't allow no people visiting when I'm recording.
Yes.
A season of Fred Astaire classics includes Funny Face with Audrey Hepburn.
What's wrong with bringing out a girl who has character, spirit, and intelligence? That certainly would be novel in a fashion magazine.
Walter Matthau stars in A New Leaf.
How I long to hear another voice, a man's arms.
And with Jack Lemmon in a newspaper story, The Front Page.
Mr. Burns, I wouldn't cover The Last Supper for you.
Some films...
John Lennon is dead, shot several times by a young American as he was going into his home in New York. The former Beatle, who was 40, was returning home from a recording studio with his wife, Yoko Ono, when he was murdered. It was just before 11 o'clock last night when they were entering the luxury Dakota apartment building on New York's west side. The attacker, named by police as David Chapman, aged 25, from Honolulu, shot Lennon with a revolver after an argument. Mrs. Lennon called for help. Residents in the building came to her aid. Mrs. Lennon accompanied her husband to hospital, but he was dead on arrival. Crowds quickly gathered outside the apartment block as news of the murder spread. Some among them said the arrested man had been hanging around the building for some days. Police said the gunman had got John Lennon's autograph earlier in the evening. They said it wasn't uncommon for people to wait at the entrance to the Dakota because many celebrities lived there. According to the police account, the gunman fired 5 or 7 shots at Lennon.
Mr. Lennon was struck several times. We're not positive at this time as to how many times he was struck. He went up the stairs. There are 5 steps that lead up into the watchman's area of the Dakota. He went through that area into an office inside where he collapsed to the floor.
Police say the motive for the murder is not clear, but they've described the man they arrested as mentally unbalanced. A police car took Lennon to the Roosevelt Hospital, where doctors said he'd been hit several times. He was dead by the time he arrived. Lennon's body was taken from the hospital for police examination, and a search was being made of the suspect's room at a block in another part of the city. All night, crowds, many of them weeping, waited outside Lennon's home, showing the reverence in which the founder of the Beatles was held by more than one generation. John Lennon's songwriting partner, Paul McCartney, says he can't yet take in the news of his death. He said John will be missed by the whole world. George Harrison also said he was deeply shocked at the news. And Ringo Starr, who was on holiday when told of his death, has flown to America and says he's extremely shocked. Anger at John Lennon's murder was expressed by George Martin, the man who worked with him as producer of most of the Beatles' records. He was asked by Gavin Hewitt how he saw John Lennon's contribution to the group.
He was very much one of the fundamental parts of it. He and Paul, of course, wrote most of the music. And the Beatles were a unique quartet because they each contributed a great deal to each other, and the 4 of them became larger than the individual parts. They were a tremendous team, and John was very much part of that team and a very creative member of that team. His astringency lent a great deal to the sweetness of Paul, and it was an incredible combination.
What sort of musician was he?
Well, by the standards of great musicians, he wasn't a great musician, but he was a great man. I mean, he was one of the originals of this century, no question about it.
The Beatles made Liverpool the centre of the British pop music scene in the early 60s, and their influence is still felt there, as Richard Duckenfield reports.
Liverpool's Cavern Club was the cradle of Beatlemania 20 years ago. They became the most popular of a whole host of Liverpool groups who performed at lunchtime and evening sessions. The site was turned into a car park after the warehouse that housed the cavern was demolished, and the only reminders are a statue paid for by Beatles fans and a new club on the other side of the street bearing the famous name. His aunt's house in the suburb of Allerton was John Lennon's home for most of his boyhood after his parents separated. But there's little evidence left in Liverpool of those early days. Some Beatles songs were inspired by local places, like Strawberry Fields, the Salvation Army home near to where John Lennon lived, and Penny Lane, stripped of dozens of street signs by souvenir hunters from all over the world.
During the decade that they were together, the Beatles had bigger record sales than any other musical act, and Bill Hamilton looks back on a success story that has now come to a tragic end.
It's Christmas with the Stars. It's Christmas with the children. It's Christmas with the legends. It's Christmas with friends. It's Christmas with BBC One. Country and Western star Dolly Parton on tour. And on BBC One in a minute, a strange encounter between the Goodies and a beanstalk. A variety of entertainment for Christmas with BBC One. Comedy with little and large.
Wasn't it fun to play in the summer day? We felt so jolly. Murray the mule was playing the fool, and so was Noddy with the dolly.
Dick Emery holds an underworld Christmas party.
Let me get you a drink. What do you fancy?
I don't suppose you got any myths.
The inimitable style of Val Doonican.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light.
Christmas magic and illusion with Paul Daniels.
6 lovely crackers. Now, we've got all these crackers from the Christmas tree. And I'm going to let you have a cracker, Peter. Crikey, it's a bit difficult to carry all these at once.
A festive blankety-blank.
Oh, look, the place scattered with empty boxes pretending to be presents.
Mike Yarwood Christmas show.
Yeah, but I love Christmas. Mind you, my landlady gets very confused. This year she set fire to the turkey and stuffed the Christmas pudding.
And it's him and me.
The Income Tax Records Office caught fire today. Reports state that almost 2 firemen fought the blaze for over a minute.
Entertainment for Christmas with BBC One. It's a star-filled Christmas and New Year edition of Radio Times. There's a special feature on Brian Forbes, who's written and directed his first television film. Radio Times also talks to that lovable rogue, Walter Matthau. Sabu stars in Jungle Book. John Alderton plays James Herriot, Cliff Mitchell-Moore puts the questions, and Nanette Newman is Jessie. There's Val Doonican on Christmas Eve and Mike Yarwood on Christmas Day. And the best in feature films. Radio Times meets Christmas stars Les Dawson, Paul Daniels, and Mike Yarwood. Join BBC Television's party of entertainment and have a Merry Christmas with the special Christmas and New Year edition of Radio Times.
You can't be having a good laugh.
Films for Christmas with BBC One. Action with 2 offbeat detectives in Freebie and the Bean.
Come on, shoot, will you? There's too many people around. Watch that! Get out of it!
Life in the Yorkshire Dales, where It Shouldn't Happen to a Vet, stars John Alderton.
There we are. God help us. That's it. It's me summer drawers.
A Western with a difference. John Wayne as Big Jake.
Oh, Father. Am I glad to see you. Take off your glasses. My what? Your goggles.
Mid-air drama with Airport 1975. And tension on the top floor in the towering Inferno.
Hey!
Some exciting films for Christmas from ITV. On Christmas